There you go.
Wonderful. Okay. Once again, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kate Spellman, she, her. I, along with Jessica Harris, who's also on this call, am one of the co-leads for the Philanthropy Club of Illinois this season. Today's presentation is Forefront and Philanthropy Club coming together. And just a few words of introduction before we get started. The Philanthropy Club of Illinois was founded over 20 years ago by Gus Wilhelmy, the co-founder of the Safer Foundation. The club is 100% volunteer driven, and our singular goal is to level the playing field for all Illinois nonprofits, especially when it comes to access to funding to support the mission of their organizations and the communities that they serve. We fulfill this goal by providing these no-cost monthly programs from February to November to support nonprofits with access to funders and by offering technical skill building for effective fundraising. We are sponsored by Forefront, to whom we are so grateful. In a few minutes, when I get off, I will put a link to Forefront's website in the chat, but it's just myforefront.org, and you can learn more about their services for Illinois-based nonprofits there. Our Forefront staff partner is Suzy Lee, who will be presenting this morning, and she's joined behind the scenes by Emily Long. We want to say thank you so much to Suzy and for Emily for all that they do to give us seamless times of learning and to support the club. If somebody forwarded you the invite to this session and you'd like to receive regular program notifications, I will also put Suzy's email in the chat. You can send her a note and she'll add you to the Phi Club email list. All right, about that chat, please use it to introduce yourself and your organization. We welcome self-promotion in this space. So this is a great place to share if you have an event coming up, there's something you want to get out. If you're hiring, this is a great place to put that information out. Drop your links, drop your email, everything like that. Also, I'm going to invite you while Suzy and while Caroline are speaking to use the chat for your Q&A. If you have a question that you want to ask anonymously, you can private message it to me and I will not share your name when I read out your question. All right. Moving on, we have two fabulous presenters this morning from Forefront. First is Suzy Lee. As part of the program team, Suzy's focus areas include Forefront's flagship series and services for grant makers, advisors, and nonprofits, including Phi Club. Suzy previously served as the senior manager of the children's nutrition policy at the Greater Chicago Food Depository and led the Illinois No Kid Hungry campaign. Prior to that, Suzy served as the vice chair of the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. I have a very good friend who did that, and he loved it, and was responsible for policy research, program evaluation, and development. Suzy actively volunteers for many organizations and is a member of the Hanover College alumni recruitment team. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from Hanover College and a Master's of Public Administration from DePaul University School of Public Service. When she's not working or volunteering, you can find her in her garden, trying a new ice cream recipe, or playing with her English bulldog. She is very much worth a follow on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Our second presenter is Caroline Manley. Caroline is the director of the nonprofit Resilience Hub at Forefront, which is the main focus of our session today, where she leads efforts to strengthen the capacity, sustainability, and long-term resilience of Illinois' entire nonprofit sector. In this role, she helps organizations navigate challenges, build strategic partnerships, and connect to the resources that they need to thrive. Caroline previously served as the executive director of the Center for Disability and Elder Law, where she oversaw a period of very significant growth, tripling the organization's annual budget and expanding staff capacity to meet rising community needs. During her tenure, she managed multiple aspects of operations, including strategic leadership, finance, and fundraising. Earlier in her career, Caroline developed community-based legal clinics across Cook County and provided direct legal representation to clients. Caroline earned her Juris Doctorate from DePaul University's College of Law and her bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Illinois. So without further ado, I will take my slides down so that Suzy can share hers and get us started.
And forgive me, Kate, we decided to flip. So we're actually going to
Oh,
start with
apologies.
Caroline and the Nonprofit Resilience Hub, but I'll get back to you in a few minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate and Suzy, and I'm happy to be here. It's a really exciting day for the Nonprofit Resilience Hub because it's our official launch day. So I joined Forefront back in October and have spent all that time working with the team at Forefront and with our partners for this program to develop the hub and to really get ready for this day. So I couldn't sleep last night. It's like a really exciting day for me and for all of us. So I'm excited to be here to share it with you. So I have some slides that I'm going to put up as we talk through what the hub is. And that's the first point. What is the hub? So this new resource is a confidential and collaborative resource for Illinois nonprofits with operating budgets of $10 million of less. And it really was created in response to many federal actions that organizations are now facing. And it's meant to really be a central starting point for organizations to be able to request assistance in four major service areas. So through the hub, there will be access to legal assistance, financial management resources, strategic partnerships, and prospect research. For those of you that might be familiar with Forefront, the Mission Sustainability Initiative that Forefront has had for about the last decade is now part of the hub. And so it's kind of rolled into that strategic partnership arm of it. And I'll tell you all a little bit more about that as I go through each of these service areas. I'm going to break down who our partners are and then exactly, excuse me, what type of services we anticipate being able to offer. So our first partner is the Chicago Bar Foundation. The Chicago Bar Foundation, with respect to the hub, is in charge of coordinating the development of legal tools and resources. And then they're also leading a legal advisory committee that's working to help develop those tools. And they will also be recruiting pro bono resources for the nonprofits across Illinois. Some of the specific work that they're doing with that committee, they've put together a really fantastic committee of real experts in both the nonprofit space and then a nice variety across arts organizations, large firms, smaller practitioners, really to bring a bunch of different perspectives to this work and to be able to really help inform what type of information we need to be providing through our webinars and what tools we have on our website. Speaking of those tools, we know that there is so much out there right now, and there's lots of places you can go for more reading or articles about what different executive orders might mean or what the changes in federal funding might mean. But a lot of them are really quite overwhelming, and some of them they can range from overly simplistic to overly technical, and that can be really hard for leaders in the nonprofit community who are trying to figure things out. So we're working really hard to create some of our own tools that will be available for people to use that we hope will strike the right balance between providing what people need to know, but making it in a clear and straightforward way. And then the free legal services are provided through another partner that's part of the hub, the Chicago Lawyers Committee, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. But they'll be working in conjunction with the Chicago Bar Foundation to put together some of these pro bono projects that we'll have. One of those tools, just as an example, is this DEI risk assessment tool. This was developed by that committee and is now available on the Hub site. But the idea is that nonprofit leaders will be able to download this tool and kind of do your own self-assessment. And then with the free legal resources that are available, you can come into those conversations being more informed and maybe also having a good point for conversations that might need to be had with staff or with board members. So the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights is the direct service provider within the Hub's legal spoke, and they have been providing assistance to nonprofit organizations for decades. And so they have a lot of that expertise in terms of helping organizations with 501c3 compliance and other issues that might be coming up. They also have a litigation team, and so they are able to offer limited litigation resources. Right now, they're involved in 3 federal lawsuits. But what's important about that is that they're really staying on top of what's not only happening here in Illinois, but across the nation, and are able to give some good guidance. The main areas that we're really focused on with respect to the legal components are DEI, so helping organizations understand what those new directives mean and what they don't mean. 501c3 status compliance, and then also another major area is the federal funding certification requirements. So a lot of new contracts from the federal government are requiring certifications. And so we want to make sure that organizations know what they're signing up for if they do, in fact, decide to move forward with those contracts. There will be a variety of different ways that these services are offered. Legal consultations people can apply for. Chicago Lawyers Committee also has clinics where they bring in pro bono attorneys and are able to meet with kind of a group of people at one time to go over a specific area that's usually either 501c3 compliance or doing a DEI review. They can provide follow-on legal services after that if people need to do things like revise their bylaws or their policies or procedures. They can offer assistance in that area. And then, as I mentioned, they have select cases that they're able to offer litigation support in. Moving on to financial management, BDO is our partner. And so many of you might know who BDO is or attended another one of their presentations, but they are really focused, this arm of the BDO Nonprofit and Grantmaker Advisory, on helping nonprofit organizations be able to take a look at their internal budgets and practices and create more resilient financial management practices. So their main specific areas, and they really cover a lot. There's a lot that BDO can do to help organizations, anywhere from doing things like scenario planning to business model recalibration if funding sources are really changing, taking a look at grant management and compliance. So really, it's quite broad. And the way that they're able to provide those services is through a variety of different ways. So they have workshops, which you can think of as kind of like a webinar, that are open access and that anyone can attend. We have several of those that we've done, and we've got one coming up in a couple weeks that I'll put the link in for in just a moment. But those are open access and anybody can attend those. They also have clinics. Those are 2-part online workshops that really dig deeply into a specific issue area. Those do require an application because they can only do about 10 organizations at once, and many of those organizations will bring a couple members of their team with them. So we do have another one of those coming up soon, and the application's due in a couple weeks, so I'll be providing information on that. They also have coaching. So if there's a specific issue that comes in and an organization needs help just kind of working through it, they can offer 5 hours of one-on-one support. And then the final area is technical assistance, and that's really a much more intensive project that they might be able to offer on really completing something like looking intensely at policies and procedures, or doing a very large rebudgeting if an organization, helping them figure that out, maybe is contracting or expanding. And then there's Forefront. So we're the 4th and final partner in the group. And we have a few roles in this project. So first, we are the central intake for the hub. And so most people will start by contacting Forefront directly, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But people will start by coming to Forefront, having a 30-minute consultation with a member of our team, and then we will work to connect people with these resources. For legal, there is a little bit way to go directly over to Chicago Lawyers Committee if that's the only thing that people know that they need, but otherwise people will start here at Forefront. And then we also are offering expanded services in two main areas. The first is the strategic partnership area. And again, this is the area that used to be called the Mission Sustainability Initiative at Forefront. It's now folded right into the hub under the strategic partnership arm. And so really, this covers a broad range of different strategic partnerships, everywhere from alliance and networks to shared service agreements, and then integrated organizations all the way to mergers and acquisitions. So there's really a lot that's on this continuum of strategic partnerships. But what we'll be doing here at Forefront with respect to that is several different things. So the first is those confidential conversations. A lot of times when people are starting to consider some of these strategic partnerships, there's a lot involved, especially if it's something like a merger or program transfer, where sometimes you just need somewhere to be able to come and talk, and not worry about your board or your team or external forces or your funders. And so that is one thing that we're able to offer is that safe space. We will also be doing webinars that will cover different types of strategic partnerships and what organizations might want to be thinking about if they want to explore some. We do have support for consulting as well. And so we'll be working to match organizations that are ready to dive a little bit more deeply into some of these conversations with consultants who can help them really explore and understand what those steps are and what they should be thinking about. And then finally, later this year, we'll be doing something kind of similar to BDO's cohorts through some workshops where we'll have some smaller groups that are in a really similar stage of exploring a partnership come together and have some learning done in a shared space. The final service that's available is prospect research. So for a long time, Forefront has been doing this work for its members. We have a two-person library team that's wonderful, and they have the tools and the expertise to really help identify funders that might be a good match for different organizations. And so through the hub, those services will be available for a select number of organizations that are not Forefront members. And so that will be a one-time customized report that's completed, and those resources will be, specifically aligned with the organization's mission, their size, what location they're in, and will hopefully be able to help organizations weather this moment in time right now where some funding is more difficult to obtain. In creating the hub and all the work we've been doing over the past 6 months that I've been here, but really the year since this was first conceptualized, we really want to be a supportive resource. It is a free resource, so there's no cost to access any of these services. We're working towards being as holistic as we can be. And as today being our launch day, we're really looking forward to seeing what people are coming to us with and then working together to create some more holistic services with our partners. And then another important part is, again, that it's confidential. So any of these services that are received or any outreach that's done to the hub is confidential and will not be shared externally. I talked a little bit about that DEI checklist that was specifically created for the hub. We are working across the board to make sure that the resources that we share on our website and with organizations after their consultations, again, that they're really vetted for that quality, clarity, and practical applicability. So we'll be changing those out over time, making sure that we have the most recent information out there. And then hopefully,
Are they dirty?
as people,
Clean.
hopefully as people come in, they'll be able to quickly access what they need. We also have tons of resources that we don't have on the website, and those are the more nuanced ones. And so we will certainly be providing people with additional resources after they have those consultation calls. We have a bunch of programming that's coming up, and I'll drop the links in the chat. But on Thursday, we have Collaboration for Impact, exploring strategic partnerships across the nonprofit spectrum. I'm really excited about this one. We have some great presenters, including some former grantees of the Mission Sustainability Initiative who did a really cool collaboration between 5 different theater groups, and they'll be speaking. On April 15th, there's one of those government compliance clinics that the Chicago Lawyers Committee is hosting. So there's a registration link for that I'll drop in the chat. And then one of those BDO programs about nonprofit operations. Also with BDO, we have the 2-part session coming up for assessing revenue risk. And again, this is one where an application is required because we can only accept 10 organizations into it. But these will all be great programs. So if this is something that might be helpful to you or to somebody that you know, please go ahead and share these with your network. And I'll just, let's see, take a quick second and drop some of these links in. The first one is just all Hub events. And so that'll take you directly to the Hub website where they'll all be listed. So you can always check that out. Speaking of the website is live. And so this is just going to walk you through a little bit what it looks like. So from the Forefront main page, you can get to the Resilience Hub in our program area. And then this is our site. So on here, we have our basic information. We have the link to the intake form just all over the place. Wherever you see start here or intake form, you can click on that. It's really just a 5 to 10 minute questionnaire that'll get people started. We have all of those 4 service areas are outlined, and for each service area, again, we have those kind of 3 to 6 curated resources that are there specifically for nonprofits to find. The legal page has some additional ones, so that button below takes you externally, or not externally, it's still within Forefront, but it'll pop you over to this more intensive site where you can find additional information and resources about those 3 main issue areas. If you are looking for something that you don't find, this is all very new, so we certainly welcome people to reach out to us with any feedback and any issues that you might have while accessing our site. That's the upcoming events section, and so those will always have the next 6 events will be highlighted there. We have a newsletter if you want to subscribe to that. You can subscribe on the site. And then a whole bunch of frequently asked questions. So we do encourage you to check it out. And if it's not something that's helpful to you in this moment, please share it with someone who might get value out of it. This is a quick preview of the intake form. It's really very short. It's 3 little windows that really just collect some basic information and information about the organization and who's contacting us. At the end of that intake form, a Calendly link pops up, and so people then can select whatever 30-minute appointment works for them directly from that site, and then they're all set. During that intake appointment, we will get some more information about what type of help the organization is requesting, and then the follow-up after that could be any variety of things. It might be sending some articles or some resources. It might be getting somebody plugged into one of these cohort programs or public access sessions, or it could be connecting them directly with one of our partners for kind of a deeper dive into the issue areas. Like all things, we do have finite resources, so the level of support that we're able to offer any one organization will depend on both capacity and then both the intensity of the need, but everybody is welcome to reach out to us to have these conversations and see where we might be able to provide assistance. This QR code will just take you right back to that website. So it's myforefront.org/hub. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
You're welcome if you have a question to take yourself off mute. You can also use the chat if you're not able to take yourself off mute right now to put in a question. And if you want to message me directly, so your question is anonymous, or to message Caroline directly. They've changed a little bit how you do this in Zoom, but if you open up the chat at the top, there's a button that says everyone, and there should be a little plus sign next to it that says new chat. You can use that to message someone directly. Caroline, we have someone who says, I'm curious to learn more about the coaching offering. Could you speak to that perhaps?
Yeah, so the coaching is specifically through BDO, and that's they can cover any variety of issues in their area, but it's a series of just conversations to help an organization dive a little bit more deeply into one of their financial management needs. So, something where like an article is not going to cut it, and maybe it's not the full length of a technical assistance project, but it is something where the leader needs a little bit more help working through, again, either something like scenario planning or taking a look at some policies and procedures where they have some specific questions about where there might be some opportunities for efficiencies, things like that.
Caroline, from me, just to clarify things, so you do not have to be a Forefront member to access the Resilience Hub, is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yep. So the parameters are that it's an Illinois-based nonprofit with an operating budget of $10 million or less. And then we're focused on how federal actions have impacted the organizations. And so we'll kind of be looking at that as one of the items that we consider as we think about what level of service we're able to offer.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. Full disclosure, my organization is a Forefront member. There's a sliding scale based on your budget, and it is, at my level at least, completely worth the price of admission, even if all you do is email the librarian every couple of months with weird questions. Um, just to plug for Forefront as a membership organization, it does deliver great services, but you can access the Resilience Hub absolutely for free without a Forefront membership. Okay. Any other questions? Again, you can take yourself off mute or put a question in the chat. Otherwise, we will move to Suzy's presentation.
Thank you. I'll just take a minute to get these slides up.
While you're doing that, I'll also say we had a number of folks pop on after our session started. So please also use the chat to introduce yourself, tell us about your organization. We welcome if you have an event coming up or an offering that you want to share, or if you're hiring, you can also put that information in the chat and share it with our group.
All right. Are folks seeing my slides?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. It changed my view, so I am seeing nothing but my slides at the moment, which is a little disorienting. So I'm going to be sharing with folks another resource that we don't actually hype up as much as I would like to, but it's called the Impact Capacity Assessment Tool. It's used for a lot of things, and I think I'm sure most of folks on this call are aware there are so many different assessment tools out there that are mostly checklists. Many of them are very good for different purposes, but my experience of most of them is here's a list of 5, 10, 15 things that every nonprofit should do. And it typically says you should have a great communications plan, you should have a great board engagement plan, you should have a great fundraising plan, but it doesn't dig much into the details of how those things work. And most other assessments don't talk about the human beings in your organization that execute those plans. So the reason Forefront uses the iCAT is that it is a people-centered tool. There are kind of a few different use case models for when folks use the iCAT. One might be the most common probably is strategic planning. So folks might fold it into their strategic planning process or use it to sort of kickstart their strategic planning process. But the other one I want to talk about today is related to scenario planning and thinking about where our organizations are in this moment in time and where we want to move on from here. Some of the questions we'll talk about just more dig into what it is, why it exists, what the framework is, what capacities does it look like, and how the process actually gets started and works. But before I dig into that, I wanted to just ask folks on the room, and if folks, Kate, maybe you can help me out. If someone types it into the chat, if you could read it, or if you want to take yourself off mute. Are there folks in the room today that are about to get started with strategic planning or have it in the calendar in the near term?
I do not see anyone answering in the chat, but I will. Oh, wait, here somebody just came in. Yes, somebody said we are in process.
Okay, great. So this might be some food for thought. The other question I wanted to ask the room is, are there folks that are doing any version of scenario planning right now, particularly thinking about, the uncertainties that are facing our sector, our economy, our country? I know when I've been having casual conversations with organizations, just the level of uncertainty and trying to figure out what is the thing we should do next comes up a lot. And I'm curious if that is true for the folks in the room today.
No, but I haven't. I think the responses are still coming in. Somebody said our organization is considering an abbreviated strategic plan because of all the sector chaos, which I think is relatable to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, as we're thinking about that, I'll dig into a little bit more about this tool and how it might be effective. I often have conversations with folks where it's sort of like when I get the intake call of we're ready to do the iCAT, they've heard about it 6 months before or a year before. So this is something we've offered at Forefront for 8 years now and don't anticipate it going anywhere. So whether it's in the near term or the long term, we want folks to be aware of this tool. So the basic concept, as I mentioned, really starts with empowered people create effective organizations. And when we think about the human beings that make up our organization, do they have not just the plan on a piece of paper, but do they have the energy, the knowledge, the opportunity, and the skills to execute that plan? And so this tool is an anonymous survey. You can have both staff and board members participate. It also breaks down results by staff, board, and the total combined, which creates really interesting and productive conversations. And the questions we'll ask folks really dig into how do you feel you have the knowledge to go out and do board fundraising, and ask board members, do you feel you have the knowledge to make the ask? Do you have the opportunity to make the ask? Do you have the skills and the coaching that you need? So it really kind of digs into the details of the different areas of our work. And then when we get those results, we take a look at matching them with what capacity building actions could build those up. So motivating is kind of a really big category that can include clarifying vision. It can include providing exercises for folks to get involved, to be a part of creating vision, and also just moving the work forward. And there are 6 main capacity areas that we're looking for. So certainly not just fundraising, although obviously that one is most popular for this group today. But it looks at our organizations in terms of our leadership, our learning capacity, the oversight, generating funds, planning for the future, and managing the day-to-day. So as I mentioned, it's a multi-stakeholder participation. Each individual gets the exact same survey. It takes about 30 minutes to complete it. and it's completely anonymous. So when we get the results back, we know whether they're a staff member, a board member, a long-term volunteer, but we don't know who it is. Obviously, that lets folks be really candid in their responses. You can see on here one of the sort of types of questions and the types of answers that it asks. So, for example, how would you rate the board's capacity to raise funds for the organization? Low, medium, high, and then specific, more details in the below section. So I mentioned the 6 core capacities. It also has 28 sub-capacity areas, which I am not going to attempt to describe from memory. But I think that reminds me to mention this was created by a group called Algorithm. You can see their logo in the lower left-hand corner. And we partner with them. It's a really fascinating teamwork between some social science researchers and some lifelong nonprofit practitioners. And what I really love about that is it digs into the behavioral science of what takes us from I have a plan and I don't know what to do with it, or I don't have the opportunity to do something with it, to what is the next step my organization can take to make a real and lasting impact. So that's the other thing I really love about this tool is it doesn't tell you these are X, Y, and Z things that you should do, but facilitates a conversation, because I think any of us could probably sit down and say, here are 20 things that I would suggest my organization does differently. But how do we choose which one in this moment in time would be most impactful for our organization? So this shares a little bit more detail about those individual areas of if we have the need to build skills, increase practical ability on how to do something. We might be allowing participants to implement information that they learned, creating space in calendars for folks to be practicing new skills, to be getting development opportunities. I think those are things that are particularly in times of crisis, things that really quickly get eliminated from calendars. And being able to do an assessment like this and take a step back of where is our organization and what do we most need, can really highlight, yes, we need funding, of course. Yes, we need ideally a full staff, but what are some actions that we actually have control over with our possibly limited budgeting and time to make a difference today? Another thing I really appreciate about this tool is that it takes a look at the organizational capacity stage. So this is not linear, as you can see, and any organization can be at any stage, no matter how old they are as an organization. So I've worked with organizations that were over 100 years old, and they were in the program modeling phase because they were going through sort of a rebirth of their organization. So from the survey, it takes into account all of the different types of responses from all of the participants, and it will give its best estimate of what organizational capacity stage you're in at the moment. And then the recommendations for what your organization might do next are specifically related to that growth stage. So how it all works. I am the primary facilitator for iCAT assessments at Forefront. So folks would reach out and schedule a Calendly with me to start the conversation. And then the organization, so you have this equals and not equals sign over here, these very formal sounding titles of nonprofit account manager and organizational administrator. What that really means is there's one person based at the organization that sort of launches the project. And so they would be the main point of contact for me at Forefront. They would provide the participant information. So all of the folks that you want to complete the survey, they would enter that into the system directly. And then it might be the same person or it might be a different person who provides a little bit more detail about the organization itself. So roughly your annual budget, roughly your full-time staff equivalents. It's again about a 10-minute survey, so it's not super detailed, but it really helps finalize and refine the recommendations that come back. And then again, for the participants who complete the survey, it can be done with between as few as 3 individuals and up to 25. So I mentioned in the beginning, many folks use this as part of strategic planning process. I've had folks use it at every phase. It could be before they've even gotten started to try to refine what they want their strategic planning process to look like and focus on. And also folks that have already worked with a consultant and done sort of a formal assessment, and then they're trying to refine all of the recommendations they got and decide what is the first next step. So if you are using the iCAT as part of strategic planning, I definitely recommend including many board members. If there are at least 5 staff and 5 board members, you can get results that compare the differences in assessments of capacities for the organization in different areas. And that can be really productive conversation for an organization to see where there's alignment in understanding and where there's misalignment. That can be really helpful in moving the organization forward, and also really clarify possibly some board development or board engagement opportunities. For folks that are more on the scenario planning, it could make sense to really focus just on staff participation, but that's something that we could discuss in sort of an intake call and figure out what is the best fit for your organization. So the surveys themselves for the individual takes about 30 minutes. Folks often say, will ask me, like, how long does this take from start to finish? And the truth is, it really depends on the organization and sort of where you are in the work. I would say the fastest I've ever seen from the initial, we're interested in completing the iCAT to getting our facilitated results is about 6 weeks. And most of that is wrangling all of your staff and board members to say, have you done the survey yet? Have you done the survey yet? Have you done the survey yet? So something that we do, we share a template email for folks that you can send out to your team so that they know that they're getting a request to complete this survey, why they're getting it, what we're hoping to get out of it, why it's worth their time to complete it. But that's definitely the most time consuming part, is letting folks know, like, this is the project that we're undertaking, why we're doing it, and making sure that folks carve out that 30 minutes to complete the survey. And then once all of the surveys are completed, it actually only takes about 24 to 48 hours to get the report back. And then we schedule a facilitated call to digest those results. Because that, I think, can be where some of the best work comes from. So this is just a sample of what the sort of raw report comes out as. And the reason that we have the facilitated conversation is because it is a big pile of numbers. And there's a lot more narrative that goes with it. But I have found for most folks, just having this big pile of numbers isn't very informative and doesn't really spark the conversation. So we facilitate it and go through and sort of talk about what each of these numbers mean, what they don't mean. And then optionally for organizations, we've developed a discussion guide that's in sort of a PowerPoint format that once you have typically your leadership team, possibly including your board chair, again, totally up to the organization. So it's usually 3 or 4 folks that are in the facilitated debrief after the assessment is done. And then those folks can take the discussion guide either to a full board or a staff retreat or a staff meeting to really dig into the results that we got. And we narrow it down to maybe 3 to 5 possible next steps that your team can decide what you want to do with those. And Forefront is always happy to connect folks with, once you've decided what your next steps are, to find trainings, workshops, resources, or possibly consultants to execute those plans. So I wanted to bring us back to sort of the big picture here, and then open it up to any questions about the iCAT.
Again, if you have questions, feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask Suzy directly. You're also welcome to put questions into the chat, and I can read them out if you're not able to come off of mute. Suzy, while we wait, how do people access the iCat, and do you need to be a Forefront member to work with this service?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me stop my share and I'll grab my Calendly link. If folks are interested, we've got a web page that you can visit um, that sort of has the summary of what I just shared. And then also, we use Calendly to schedule those assessments. And I'm sorry, we use Calendly to schedule the inquiry calls so that folks can get started. It is a member benefit, but we also provide it at cost to organizations. So that cost is, I believe, $350. But I will share that for organizations that have budgets under I believe $750,000 a year for your annual budget, it's actually less expensive to become a full member of Forefront than to buy the iCat a la carte. I know of one other organization in the state of Illinois that offers the iCat, and they charge $1,500 to participate in it. So it's a really good value for us to be offering that to our community. Let me grab that link.
Thank you. Any questions for Suzy about the iCat or any other of Forefront's resources? We did do a program for Phi Club last year about all of the resources that Forefront offers, including the library services that you've heard me talk about, some of the cohorts and other programs that they run. So I invite you, if you go to the Phi Club page, which I can put in the chat again in a minute, you can access the video of that recording, or I'm sure that you could speak to Suzy or anybody else about just to get an overview of what Forefront offers. Okay.
Question. Good
Yeah, Jessica.
morning, Suzy. I'm wondering for those in the room or those who may watch this recording who are consultants that may want to, partner with Forefront on this opportunity, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can also use the Calendly link or my email. I'll repost it. I know Kate did earlier. There have been at least two or three different consultants that we've partnered with and facilitated it in tandem.
Good question, Jessica. Okay, and Suzy just put her email in the chat again. Okay, well, seeing no questions, I don't want to jump ahead if anybody is typing, we'll come back to you, but let me share my screen one more time just to close us out, and we'll maybe even end you just a couple of minutes before 10. Oh, so actually, okay, there's a question. Is the iCat offered in different languages, Suzy? Or is it English
At
only?
the moment, I don't have access to that. I mean, I don't believe it exists. I'd be curious if there might be some AI tools that could help us, but that would require a little bit of homework on my part.
That's a good question because I can imagine a scenario for some organizations where, especially if you're going to your board or your volunteers or people you serve, that they would need a different language to really fully participate. So good question.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. I'm just doing this. I'm going to push enter on this in the chat just to say, first of all, we invite you. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you to Suzy and thank you to Caroline for jumping on here and sharing a little bit about the Resilience Hub and about the iCat. So, a reminder, the Resilience Hub is live today. So, if you're out there on LinkedIn, especially, make sure to like and share the posts from Forefront celebrating the launch. You could be among the first, you're among the first to know, and you could be among the first to take advantage of that. We also really rely on this community to spread the word. So please help us get the information out there. All right. I just put a link in the chat. I want to invite you to join us for our next monthly program, which is going to be Tuesday, May 5th at 9 a.m. Bill Leinard of the Field Museum is going to be sharing on the seamless integration of major and planned giving. Bill is a member of the board of the Chicago Council on Planned Giving, but we'll be sharing this year specifically on how you can manage major and planned gifts so that they are working together instead of working against each other. A reminder that Phi Club is 100% volunteer led. We are always looking for moderators. Those are folks who can come on here. You can present, you can bring other people on to present. It ends up being a really great way to network and sort of find out who is active in the philanthropy community in and around Chicago. If you're interested in that, I'll put my email address in the chat, but you can also find me through LinkedIn. If you go to the Phi Club site, all of our moderators have their LinkedIn profiles there, and you can message any one of them to talk more about getting involved. That's all I've got. Thank you again so much to Suzy and to Caroline for being our presenters today, for bringing their wealth of wisdom to us, and really for all that Forefront does for the nonprofit sector in Illinois. It's I'm on webinars sometimes with people from other states, and I'm like, don't you have a Forefront that's doing this? And a lot of states don't. So thank you for the work that you are doing really to strengthen our sector in this state and to help guide people through, somebody said, the chaos that is this current moment. That was well said, whoever put that in the chat. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And please do us a favor, if you're not signed up to receive emails, email Suzy and let her know that you're interested, and share next month's program with a friend in the sector so we can all join, learn, network, and support each other in this work. So thank you so much for joining us.